12 seconds later.
Stop! Oh. Thank you for the recommendation. I forgot your name. Hopefully I remember to put it in the intro.
Today's video is sponsored by Shudder, the ultimate streaming service for horror, thriller, and supernatural movies and series. You could call it the Netflix of horror. Shudder's expertly...
Remember to post all your reaction requests in the comment section below. Am I showing too much chest hair? I feel like...
to their massive treasure trove of original entertainment on...
Best water so far for a good price. Costco. Kirkland water. Oh my god. That and like Fiji water. I really like Fiji water. I'm done with Walmart water after I almost choked on a big ass thing. It was a plastic that I found in a Walmart water bottle, Walmart brand water bottle about this big, inside the bottle, and it was sealed. If I would have drunk that, I probably either would have died, something bad would have happened. I probably should have drank it and then sued. But I don't know how I would have sued.
56.
I don't know how I would have sued. That's a long ass ad. Jesus. But I don't know how I would have sued. I don't know how I would have been able to prove that. But let's go.
Ad free. That's shudder.com and use promo code LAZY to start your free month of spookiness.
Long ass ad.
The case we're covering today has to be one of the most intriguing and macabre rabbit holes I've talked about on this channel.
Right.
It involves brutal slayings, bizarre clues, a corrupt sheriff's department, and a plethora of theories, rumors, and possible suspects.
A plethora?
With a whole tangled web of connections and motives to go over, I'll do my best to streamline all the information and keep things coherent.
Right.
So, throw on your detective hats, power up that grey matter, and join me as we try to make sense of the Unsolved Massacre at cabin number 28.
Whoa! Wait a second! What about all them other ones before the 28? Wait a minute. So is it more cabins? Is it less cabins? What happened to 1 through 27? Is there like more than 28? Or is 28 the one that matters?
The year was 1981.
Right.
Glenna, or as she preferred to be called, Sue Sharp, was a 36-year-old single mother. She and her 5 children, John, Sheila, Tina, Rick, and Greg, all lived together in the tiny, rundown town of Keddie, California.
Right.
Their house, known as cabin number 28, was situated in the forested Sierra Nevada resort,
Jesus.
And was just as old and dilapidated as the town itself. Still, for a single woman with 5 other mouths to feed, it was cheap. It was also close to her brother's house, and far from her mean ex-husband, James. Despite the questionable condition of the cabin itself, the family seemed to enjoy living there. It was far larger than their previous home, and there was woodland throughout the resort for the youngsters to explore and play in. There were also plenty of other people living at the resort to socialize with. Despite the forest surrounding them, this was far from the middle of nowhere. The Sharp family were now, seemingly, the happiest they had been in a long, long time. But in a cruel twist of fate, their newfound happy home was about to become the setting of utter carnage. April 11th was a Saturday, and for
April what? 11th. There go them angel numbers again. Come on now. Come on with it. All glory to God.
Sharps, that meant hanging out with their newfound friends at the resort. John was with his good friend, Dana Wingate, in Quincy, the next town over. Sheila and Tina were next door at a neighbor's cabin. Sue herself was at home, watching over her 2 youngest sons, Rick and Greg, as well as one of their friends, Justin Smart, a boy who was staying for a sleepover. This was just like any other Saturday, with nothing odd or noteworthy happening throughout the morning and afternoon. At 8:30 p.m., Greg went to bed, followed by Tina at 9:30. Rick and Justin stayed up until 10, watching TV with Sue in the living room. Sue herself stayed lying on the sofa, waiting for her eldest child, John, to return home with Dana. As for Sheila, she had decided to stay the night at the cabin next door. The following morning, at about 8 a.m., Sheila left the neighbor's cabin and made her way back to her family's. She opened the door to cabin 28 and was instantly met with a scene that doesn't bear thinking about. Lying face up in the living room, covered in blood and deep punctures, was her elder brother, John.
Just like that? No build up, no nothing. It was just like that. No. Damn. That's like night and day. Damn. There was nothing. There was no build up to it whatsoever. Maybe I missed it, but like, Jesus.
His friend, Dana, lay face down beside him. In the same room, wrapped up in a yellow blanket, was her mother, Sue.
God damn.
All of them had their hands and ankles bound with medical tape and electrical cords, and none of them were breathing. As you can imagine, after stepping into that nightmare, Sheila immediately ran back out the front door and straight to her neighbor's cabin, screaming and crying for help. The neighbors contacted the Plumas County Sheriff's Office. While they waited for the officers and ambulances to arrive, Sheila and her neighbors went back to cabin 28. They peered in through a window, and, strangely, Rick, Greg, and Justin were all still fast asleep in their beds.
What?
Alive and well.
What?
They had apparently slept through the entire incident. They pulled the youngsters through said window so that they wouldn't see the 3 bodies just outside their room. They then checked through the rest of the house, looking for Tina. Tina was nowhere to be found.
Hey Mo, for real, on some real shit, if I'm in a house full of people, like on some Home Alone type shit, right? All the mother cluckers in that big ass house. And like, let's say we live in a house with 10 people in it. And out of the 10, about 7 of them downstairs, and I'm upstairs. But all 7 of them got clucked up, done for, right? And they were, man, I don't know if I would, either the people that did it were quiet, or the brothers, they didn't want to do nothing about it. You know? Because to be honest, if that had, God forbid, if that happened to me, and I heard it, I heard like commotion going downstairs, I'm gonna stay quiet. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's easier said than done, but if I don't know. I say that, but then in reality, what if it really does happen? God forbid. But I don't know. Because I don't want to get clucked up at all. But it sucks about me hearing that shit downstairs.
She had been...
Tina! Hey, what's up, Tina? Huh? Where you at? Huh? Where your clutch ass at? On me, on mothers, you better have nothing to do with this. On me. On me.
Whoever had done this, whoever had taken her, they had left the back door unlocked.
Oh my God.
On the floor next to John was one of the instruments used in the slayings. A steak knife, its blade bent about 30 degrees.
Jesus.
A second blade, as well as a hammer, were also found on a small table.
Bro, a hammer, bro?
In total, 5 officers arrived to examine the cabin. None of them had experience with preserving a crime scene of this nature, and only after all 5 of them had gone through the house did they start taking photos and documenting evidence. Their incompetence would have huge ramifications on the future of this investigation, not least because they failed to report Tina missing for several hours. During that time, the remains of Sue, John, and Dana were examined in depth. John was closest to the door. The right side of his throat had been slashed, and he had been struck in the right side of his head with a hammer. His hands were bound with a white cloth and tape, and his ankles with an extension cord, the other end of which was knotted around Dana's ankles. Dana, too, had been struck with a hammer and had also been shallowly stabbed, but ultimately he had been strangled. A much wider tape was used to secure Dana's hands, meaning 2 different rolls of tape had been used, indicative of there being more than one perp. The hammer used against Dana also wasn't the one found at the scene. As for Sue, she had been stabbed in the chest and through the neck, the blade hitting her spine. A narrower tape had been loosely wrapped around her hands and ankles, with 3 separate cords tightly wrapped around the tape. Her trousers had been pulled down, and she had been gagged with her own underwear. The blanket and sheet covering her had been taken from Tina's bedroom. Splatter on the living room walls and ceiling suggested that the massacre had all taken place in that very room, or while Rick, Greg, and Justin slept soundly just a few feet away.
I'm worried about. I'm concerned about Tina. Cause either, see, when it's something like this to this extent, Tina either has something. I'm not gonna rule Tina out. Either Tina had something to do with it, or she heard what was going on and then ran like a motherfucker. But I'm not gonna rule her out ever. Nope, nah. Or the brothers. Shit's crazy. Man.
It's hard to believe they didn't wake up while all that was happening in the same cabin as them, especially since the home was so small and the walls so thin. Following this preliminary search of the cabin, a more thorough investigation began. Curiously, there was no sign of a forced entry, and a footprint by the back door suggested that's how the perps entered the cabin, though it's unclear whether Sue left the door unlocked or whether she had willingly let the attackers in. The curtains had been closed to stop any neighbors from looking inside, and the phone line had been severed. There were blade marks on several walls inside the house, and fingerprints were discovered on the inside of a doorframe and on a railing. Pools of blood all over the living room floor and on the bottom of Sue's feet indicated that the perps had moved their victims around while they were still breathing. Next, the neighbors were questioned, and some interesting information came to light. A couple living in cabin 16 reported hearing muffled screams at around 1:15 a.m. Several other neighbors claimed to have heard a dog barking near cabin 28 that night, and that the Sharps' porch light suddenly turned on at 4 a.m. A few others noted the presence of an unfamiliar green van parked just outside cabin 28 at about 9 p.m. The local cats were also said to be acting very strangely that night, pacing around as if they sensed something was wrong. Those were all useful tidbits, sure, but what really stood out to the investigators during their questioning were the clues provided to them by Martin Smart, the father of Justin, who was sleeping over at cabin 28 the night of the incident. According to officers, Martin kept on feeding them an endless stream of clues, which they thought may have been a way for him to throw suspicion off himself. The most curious thing that Martin told them was that his claw hammer had gone missing from his toolbox. It seemed weird that he would bring that up out of the blue, especially since the cops hadn't yet told the public that a hammer was used by the perps, nor that one was missing from the scene. Despite Martin's suspicious tips, it was ironically his own son, Justin, who gave the authorities the most insightful evidence. The 12-year-old, no doubt confused and shocked by the events of that night, had originally told detectives that he had slept through the entire incident, just like Rick and Greg had. On various other occasions, though, he claimed to have heard the incident taking place in the other room, and other times even said that he had witnessed it.
What?
Obviously, he was young, so it's easy to understand how his mind may have been playing tricks on him,
My
especially
ass.
after experiencing something like that.
He not that young.
Justin agreed to be hypnotized to help him recall his true memories from that night, after which he was able to give detectives a precise description of the events which he had witnessed.
Oh, shit.
According to Justin, he was awoken at an unknown time by loud noises coming from the living room. He peeked through the door and saw two men he didn't recognize talking with Sue. One had greased back, black hair with a mustache and stood around average height. The other had long, blonde hair, was clean shaven, and was taller than average.
You know what this looks like? You know what that couple looks like? The Americans on Netflix or on Hulu, one of them. That's crazy.
Both were in their late 20s or early 30s, and, curiously, both of them wore sunglasses with golden frames and mirrored lenses. The situation was clearly tense, though Justin couldn't work out what they were talking about. That's when John and Dana came home through the front door. An argument immediately erupted between them and the two unknown men, and things quickly escalated. Young Tina came out to see what was happening, at which point one of the unknown men picked her up and walked out the back door with her.
Oh, God.
That's where Justin's memories of that night ended. Based on his descriptions, the authorities had these two composite sketches of the perps drawn up. Despite the authorities having access to the FBI's top artists, they instead approached an artist who had no experience in forensic sketching and asked him to draw these up instead. It's unclear why they made that decision. For the next 3 years, the authorities searched high and low for Tina, but turned up nothing. That is, until April 22nd, 1984. 3 years and 11 days after the cabin massacre.
Oh, shit.
A man was out in the woods of Camp 18 in Butte County, a 2.5-hour drive from Keddie. While searching for bottles, he came upon an unusual-looking object, nestled in the leaves and dirt. He took a closer look at the thing, and soon realized what it was. The cranium of a human skull.
God damn.
Next to it was part of a mandible. This discovery was made public, after which the Butte County Sheriff's Office received a chilling phone call. On the other end of the line, an anonymous person told them they had just found the bones of Tina Shaw. Soon after, the remains were tested. The caller had been telling the truth. These were indeed Tina's remains. With this discovery, interest in the case was reignited. Unfortunately, that interest resulted in nothing more than a swirl of unsubstantiated rumors and theories. Theories like the Sharps had been slain as part of a cult ritual. And that's to say, this massive development didn't actually result in any new, promising leads. That's essentially where this case hit a dead end. In the 41 years since the terrible incident at Cabin 28, neither of those two perps have been brought to justice. That being said, there are two major suspects. The aforementioned Martin Sharp and his friend and roommate, Bo Beatty. As mentioned, Martin lived next to the Sharp family, and his son Justin.
My money going on Martin. Because, like, how you going to bring up something that the police didn't even talk to you about? That's like me saying, I don't know, that like, that's like my girl asking, that's like my girl asking, hey, what you do today? I'd be like, hey, I didn't poop today. No, nothing. I did not poop today. Not at all. I did not poop at all today. Oh, yeah. Oh, cool. What?
Staying over at their cabin on the night of the murders. That night, Martin had gone over to Sue's place, along with his wife, Marilyn, and the other suspect, Bo Beatty. They invited Sue to join them at a local bar. She turned down their offer, and the trio went off without her. They didn't stay long at that bar though, since Martin hated the rock music they were playing. They returned home, and Marilyn went to bed at 11 p.m. Just before she went upstairs though, Martin and Beau strangely told her that they were going back to the bar they had just left. They then returned home again, an hour later, around midnight. At 2 a.m., Marilyn awoke to find Martin and Beau burning some unknown objects in the wood stove and talking about John Sharp. That's suspicious to say the least. But let's say they were responsible. What would have been their motive for taking 4 lives? Well, according to Marilyn, her husband Martin, quote, hated Johnny Sharp with a passion.
What the hell?
Beau, too, was no fan of John's. They'd had a run-in where John called Beau a punk to his face.
Sometimes, people don't need a motive to do the cuck shit that they did. They can be batshit crazy. You ever thought of that?
Beau had also made a pass at Sue on the night of the incident, but she had turned him down, which allegedly enraged him. Both Martin and Beau were known for having mean tempers. For example, Martin was known to be violent towards his wife.
Wow. You know what? I'm locking up Martin and Beau on sus. Sus alone. I'm still kind of new to this neighborhood that I'm in. So it's like when I see people, I'm just like, hey, what you doing? But, yeah, I'm locking up Martin and Beau just off of sus alone. You getting 15 to life.
When Marilyn confided in Sue about this, Martin became extremely angry, and he may have wanted her gone simply for knowing that information. As for Beau, he was a known lowlife, had a long criminal record, which included robberies and break-ins, and had even done hits with the Chicago Outfit Mafia, an organization he had close ties with. It's also worth noting that after they officially became suspects, both Martin and Beau disappeared from California for a while.
Oh my God.
Martin fled to Reno, and, while there, sent his wife Marilyn a letter that ended thusly. I've paid the price for your love, and now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we're through? Great. What else do you want? Bizarrely, the police didn't think that this letter was worth looking into, and failed to document it as a piece of evidence. And that's extremely suspicious. I mean, it's basically a signed confession. You could argue that the 4 lives Martin was referring to were his 4 children from a previous marriage, but personally, I'm not buying that. But what about the wording of the letter? I've paid the price for your love and bought it with 4 lives. It almost sounds as if he carried out the massacre for Marilyn.
Lock him up!
There are unconfirmed reports that Sue and Martin were having an affair behind Marilyn's back. Perhaps then,
You gonna have an affair with Sue? I remember when I was a kid, people used to do that. Do people even, that's crazy how times change. I have never seen nobody ever do that since I was a kid.
and found out about their entanglement, and, under threat of divorce, had Martin take care of business for her. And that's just speculation, though. On top of the letter, Martin confessed to his counselor that he had indeed killed Sue and Tina, but flat out denied having anything to do with the slayings of John or Dana. Many people, including Marilyn Smart, believe that Martin and Beau were the ones responsible for taking Sue, John, and Dana's lives. Yet, despite all the evidence against them, the authorities never felt like it was strong enough to charge either man.
What?
According to Sheriff Doug Thomas, Martin had voluntarily taken a polygraph test and passed with flying colours, which, apparently, proved he was innocent. But I think we all know how unreliable those tests can be.
I'm saying.
When Martin and Bo were brought in for questioning, the sheriff also made sure that they were interviewed together rather than separately, basically breaking the first rule of the interrogation handbook. It would later come to light that Sheriff Thomas was a close personal friend of Martin's, and may have even told him to skip town after he and Bo became suspects. Unless Martin was intentionally trying to insert himself into the case for the thrill of it, I'd say it's pretty obvious he was responsible. One plausible timeline of events goes like this. In the daytime, Martin sent his son, Justin, to stay over at Cabin 28 to give the illusion that he wasn't involved in any way. At 9 p.m, when Martin, Bo and Marilyn went to invite Sue out, the two men were actually casing the cabin to see who was home. At 11 p.m, when they claimed to be going back to the bar, they both actually snuck over to Sue's place, but were surprised by the appearance of John and Dana. The two lads had tempers of their own, so things quickly got out of hand when they tried to defend Sue.
Whoa, wait a minute. So you had these two, Martin and Bo, going over to Sue's house. For what? To get some That's crazy. That's the only thing I can think of. You're not about to get no sugar, no salt, pepper. You know what I mean? That's crazy how they both had tempers. And Dana and John had tempers. That don't go too well. That don't go so well at all. Because it's almost as if Martin and Bo try to get something from Sue. Try to get that But Dana and John was cock blocking.
Martin and Bo overpowered them and ended their lives.
God damn.
They also took care of Tina, who had witnessed the whole thing, hid her nearby, and later dumped her at Camp 18. At 2 a.m, they were actually burning evidence of their crime in the wood stove. Again, that's all speculative.
Wait a minute, whoa. Okay. They killed Tina. They killed Dana, John, Sue. What about the other two brothers? Wait. What? Didn't she have more kids? Yeah. Because they were still asleep. Did they not bother to check up the whole house?
Bo passed back in 1988, though some believe his mob connections helped him fake his own death. Martin passed away in June of 2000.
Okay.
In 2016, the claw hammer that was missing from the scene was found at the bottom of a pond in Keddie. It matched the description of the one that had disappeared from Martin's toolbox. That same year, new, more trustworthy detectives said that they were looking into 6 unnamed suspects who were still alive and who hadn't been properly examined at the time. The most recent development occurred in 2018, when authorities announced that they had recovered DNA from a piece of the medical tape. They said that the DNA matched with a still living suspect, but didn't disclose their name. Despite that huge finding, there have been no new developments or updates in the past 4 years. That may mean that the DNA belonged to an innocent person, or that the tape had been mishandled by officers while stored in evidence. That, or Martin and Bo actually had a third accomplice, one who was still alive in 2018.
Oh.
Perhaps Marilyn? She passed in 2020. There is actually another suspect in this case, that being Sheila Sharp, Sue's own daughter, who spent the night at the neighboring cabin. I hesitated about adding this to the script, since I don't want to cast suspicion on a family member of the victims.
Sheila did it! Woo! Along with Martin and Bo. when it's a situation like this, when it's a Clark situation like this, and it's that like to this magnitude, everybody's a suspect in my eyes, at least. Everybody's a suspect. I don't give a cluck who you are. Cluck?
But the author of Keddie28.com has put forward an argument about their possible involvement, which has gained a lot of attention. So I'll go over that here now. But let me be clear that this is just one person's theory, and not my own. According to the author, Sheila wasn't very fond of her mother, Sue. As he states, we do know for a fact that just 2 short months before the incident, at the age of just 13, Sheila actually gave birth to her own daughter. It's believed that the father was a young man named Richard Meeks, the son of Marilyn Smart's friend. According to Keddie28's author, Sheila viewed her new daughter as an opportunity to escape her own family and join the Meeks household. However, against Sheila's will, her mother Sue put the baby up for adoption. This angered both Sheila and the Meeks family, who then conspired to have Sue killed. Since Sue was supposedly having an affair with Marilyn's husband, Martin, she too wanted Sue gone. Marilyn, Sheila, and the Meeks then came together and hatched a devious plan. Sheila would convince her neighbors at Cabin 27 to let her stay the night, despite never having slept there before, while also making sure to switch off the lights around her own cabin and leaving the door unlocked. Martin, Beau, and Marilyn were then free to enter the cabin and end Sue's life. What they didn't plan on was being interrupted by John, Dana, and Tina. As a result, they had to be taken care of too.
Jesus.
Again, this is just one theory, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Personally, I don't think Sheila had anything to do with what happened to her family, and that she was just extremely lucky to be staying at Cabin 27 that fateful night, rather than Cabin 28. But I think we can all agree that Martin and Beau were most certainly involved, and that they never faced justice for their actions. I don't think we can brush that off as just being the result of police incompetence either. I think it's something much more sinister than that. 1 or 2 mistakes is incompetence, but the amount of times the original officers on this case screwed up and ignored vital evidence, well, I'm all but certain their incompetence was intentional. Either Martin's good friendship with Sheriff Thomas got them off the hook, or Beau's connections in the Chicago mob were able to dissuade or buy off the authorities. But what do you think? Could a corrupt sheriff's department, and perhaps even the feds, have tried to protect the culprits and cover things up? Was there more going on beneath the surface in this case that we simply don't know about? All I know is that this is one of the most riveting and dark rabbit holes I've dug
Okay,
around.
whoa. By him? These are the 2 brothers. Him. This is Tina, I believe, right? Obviously, this is Sue. This would be Sheila. Who the hell is this in the middle? The baby.
Him for a while. We can only hope that one day, the 4 victims, whose lives were all cut far too short, can have their killers' identities officially confirmed. Until that official confirmation, this case will remain unofficially solved.
They both did it. What are you talking about? And if they didn't do it, lock them up on sustenance. 15 years to life. Alright. So, Sheila. Is Sheila still alive? Is she still out here? I'm saying Martin did it. Beau did it. Sheila has something to do with it. In cahoots. But you know what I can't stop helping thinking about? Sue's ex. Because you can be in a whole different state. You can be in a whole different time zone. And still commit crimes. So I'm not even ruling, I'm not going to rule her ex out either. But definitely Martin and Bo definitely did it. I don't know if they had help along the way, but they did it. You can't tell me otherwise. But yeah, I mean, yeah, when it's a cluck shit like this to like this extreme, everybody's a suspect. Everybody did it until proven otherwise. Everybody doing 15 to life until proven otherwise. But I just can't help but think about her ex. Cause what if her ex was the mastermind behind all this? Just saying, that shit is crazy. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy, my family.